All right, so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the infamous Texas A&M 2022 recruiting class, the greatest class of all time. Yes, if you don't remember, Texas A&M in 2022 just blatantly cheated. I mean, they weren't the only team to cheat, but this was a time where NIL had just gotten introduced. Nobody really knew what to make of it. They signed the number one overall class with 8 5-stars and like 4 5-stars on the defensive line. So this was the final results, a grand total of 30 commits. They oversigned. Normally you signed around 25 guys. It's not too uncommon to oversign, but 8 5-stars, 24 stars, and 2 3-stars, an average of 95, which is just ridiculous, and a score of 333 points, which I believe is the number one score in recruiting history. And we're going to talk about what happened to all these guys. Obviously, Texas A&M, all of these guys 2 years through their careers now, since they were part of the 2022 class, Texas A&M, really nothing to show for it, even with all of this talent and many of these players transferring out. So the grand jewel of the class, Walter Nolan, the massive defensive tackle from Tennessee, the number 2 overall player, absurdly high rating. He was almost the number 1 player in the entire class. But yeah, he's a very impressive looking prospect. You can see playing in 10 games as a freshman, 12 games as a sophomore, being a massive defensive tackle, 8.5 tackles for loss, including 4 sacks. He's a disruptor, and he did transfer to Ole Miss. Well, first he hit the transfer portal, and he was re-ranked in the portal as the number 3 overall player with a rating of 99, and you can see the transfer to Ole Miss. I would expect him to be a 3 and done, meaning he'll be at Ole Miss for 1 year, and he'll very likely be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. But Texas A&M has already lost him. He is transferred out of the program. The next highest ranked player, Shamar Stewart, who's a defensive lineman from the state of Florida. He was the number 9 overall player, the number 1 player in the state. You can see his 2 years at Texas A&M. He still is with Texas A&M. So far, it really hasn't worked out for him. He's just got 3 total sacks in the 2 years combined, 5.5 tackles for loss. He did appear in 12 games as a true freshman and 13 games last year for Texas A&M. He is still with the program, so maybe he can take a step forward this coming year. Either way, it hasn't worked out so far. The next highest ranked player, another 5-star, Evan Stewart, the number 2 overall receiver from the state of Texas. He kind of had an uneven career at Texas A&M. There were some off the field issues. You can see still a very promising future for Evan Stewart. He ended up transferring this past offseason to Oregon. Just 1,100 total yards, 6 touchdowns, not a ton of production for A&M, and he was re-ranked, keeping the 5-star status there, 98 overall, the number 5 overall transfer, and now he will be on Oregon next year, and he will be playing with the transfer portal immediate eligibility. He will be catching passes from Dylan Gabriel, facing Big Ten competition. Pretty crazy situation there. Next, it is LT Overton, so he has also transferred out. So we're 4 players into this class. All 4 of these players, 5-stars, all ranked inside of the top 14. 3 of them have transferred out, and the other one is a defensive lineman who has 3 sacks in his 2 years. It's just crazy to look back on this class. But LT Overton originally was part of the 2023 class. He was the number 3 overall player and then reclassified to 2022. And anytime you reclassify and jump forward, you will be moved down slightly. So Overton ranked 14th overall, another defensive lineman from the state of Georgia. His 2 years at A&M, really not a lot of productivity, especially his sophomore season, appearing in 12 games, no tackles for loss, 0 sacks. He was re-ranked when he did hit the portal as a 93, so he went down to a 4-star and did transfer to Alabama. Now, he transferred to Alabama technically when Nick Saban was still there, but I would imagine that Nick Saban, would tell him that he was retiring, but either way, he is at Alabama, and I would say he still has a promising future. We'll see what he can do at Bama. He's got 2 years left remaining in college. The next highest ranked player, another 5-star defensive lineman, Gabriel Brownlow Diddy, originally from the state of Florida, the 17th overall ranked player. His 2 years at Texas A&M have not gone well, just 6 total games, 2 total tackles for loss. Now he still is at Texas A&M, and you can see He will only be a sophomore because he only played one game as a true freshman. The redshirt freshman year was his last year, so he's got some years left at Texas A&M to turn it around as a five-star prospect, the big defensive lineman. The next highest ranked player, another five-star, it is Connor Wigman from the state of Texas, so not too surprising. You're from Texas, you go to Texas A&M. He was the number 2 overall quarterback in the class, the number 5 player in the state. And he's had a promising career so far. Now, in 2022, he appeared in 5 games, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pretty impressive, pretty promising start. Last year, he was officially their starting quarterback from week 1. Unfortunately, suffered an early season-ending injury, and in 4 games had 8 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. I have seen him in a few, there's very rare like 2025 mock drafts, but he's been in the first round. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but he's going to be their starting quarterback next year. We'll see what happens. He definitely does have promise. He's athletic, he can throw. We will see in terms of his potential pro future. He is still on Texas A&M. Next, it is Denver Harris, is another 5-star, the number 23 overall player, 6'1" cornerback from the state of Texas. He went to Texas A&M and immediately transferred out after a year. He appeared in 5 games and then went to LSU. And now he has re-entered the portal after spending a season at LSU as a 90 overall player, the 140th overall player in the portal. So his rating has taken a hit, but he only spent 1 year at Texas A&M. The next highest ranked player, another 5-star, the number 25 overall player, Chris Marshall. So they signed 2 5-star receivers in their 2022 class, also from the state of Texas. He only played 1 year at Texas A&M, 6 total games, 108 yards, 0 touchdowns, and then played at JUCO last year. He was ranked as the number 1 overall JUCO prospect and recently committed to Boise State. And Boise State, I'm going to have to do a separate video on Boise State. They're putting together a squad there with some really talented former elite recruits, Malachi Nelson, Chris Marshall, I think Mario Williams is there. They've got some talent, but yeah, that's where he is, and the number 1 overall JUCO player, he definitely has potential. We'll see if he can put it together on Boise State next year facing Mountain West competition. The next highest ranking player, this is not a 5-star, but he's a kind of a fringe, ranked number 39 overall, Jacoby Matthews, a safety from Louisiana. So he was the number 2 overall safety in the class of 2022. And, he's had a decent career so far at Texas A&M. 10 games as a true freshman, 11 games as a sophomore, 41 total tackles as a sophomore. He did have 4 pass defenses and also an interception. So seemingly a promising career in the secondary for Matthews. We will see what he does as a junior. The next player is Anai White from Pennsylvania. So they signed a top 50 overall player from the state of Pennsylvania. He was the number 2 overall player from the state. Yeah, Penn State really has struggled with signing kids from Philadelphia and that area. The number 47 overall player, he was an edge rusher, so another defensive lineman, and you can see just 12 total games in his career so far between his freshman and sophomore season, and just 2 total sacks. He is still at Texas A&M, so maybe he can put it together as a junior. Next, we do have Anthony Lucas, another defensive lineman, the number 59 overall player, the number 1 player in the state of Arizona. And he played just 1 year at Texas A&M before transferring out of the program, just 7 games and 1 tackle for loss. And he did transfer to USC as a highly regarded transfer portal get for them. And he did, he had some moments. He flashed with defensive linemen. It's hard to judge by their stats because they're not going to put up big numbers, just 3.5 tackles for loss. But USC employing a new defense, the Alex Grinch system is gone. We will see if he can kind of turn it on. But yeah, those are just the top players from Texas A&M's 2022 class. It is pretty crazy when you look at just going down the list and, transferred, still there. Transferred, still there, transfer, still there. It's just so many 5-stars already transferring out of their program, and obviously NIL a massive influence in this. Texas A&M, they really went for it in 2022, and it clearly didn't work out. Now, they still do have some players. They're still trying to salvage this, you know. It's not like they lost everyone from the class of 2022. You've still got possibly a few elite defensive linemen who might put it together. You still do have a young quarterback who's going to be a junior who might be able to put it together, and some other players inside of the top 100, some decent pieces. But, you know, being in the SEC, with the SEC getting tougher with Texas and Oklahoma, it's only going to get harder. And you lost, especially losing Walter Nolan, you know, a top 3 overall transfer, your number 1 overall player from that class. That is a very tough loss, along with Evan Stewart. So we'll see what happens with Texas A&M, but what a crazy recruiting class, the 2022 class. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.